Jon Jones was arrested and charged with a DWI early Saturday morning. Binghamton police received reports of a car crashed into the corner of Grand Boulevard and Helen Street around 5 a.m. Saturday morning. Through the investigation, it was determined that Jon was driving the vehicle. He was arrested and charged with a DWI.
He has obtained lapel camera video of the crash that stripped Jon Bones Jones of his title. The woman you just saw was the pregnant victim. Vanessa Sonnenberg, she suffered a broken arm.
I didn't
Sure, driver's license, registration, and insurance, please.
I'm so sorry.
The commission called me every day to let me know that he was still failing his drug test.
What's your name?
PSA Lopez? With the Albuquerque Police Department?
My brother's Detective Dreams. They split girls. But they definitely listen to conversations like this, and some of them are bored enough to kill you.
Oh, hang me, hurt me, and kill me. What did I do? Thank you, my fault. A black man can't drink? Getting elected into the Hall of Fame, and now this is what I got? Do you?
All right, guys, welcome back to the channel. Since we recently got the news that Jon Jones is officially retired, I thought I'd do a deep dive into all of the asterisks that stain his career and his legacy as a celebration of sorts. Okay, there are a lot of new fans who weren't around pre-heavyweight Jon and aren't aware of all the infractions, whether outside or inside the sport. And for those who are not new, this is just a way to document it all and give my opinion on Jon and his career. Okay, also, to quote Joe Rogan, people forget, man. Do you know what I mean? So that's what we're gonna do in this video. We're gonna go over all of Jon's infractions, going all the way back to 2012 and making our way up to present day. I think that Jon Jones might be the worst representation of a champion in mixed martial arts. And I don't mean in terms of wins and losses and title defenses and all that shit. I mean how he represents the sport, the belt, and what he was willing to give both the fans and the sport itself. There will be a lot of Jon Jones fans that say things like, well, what about Conor? And to that I say, that is completely irrelevant and simply a whataboutism. If you have to invoke the wrongdoing of others to defend somebody else, that person is probably not all that defensible. Okay, there will also be people who try to bring up his accolades and act as though fans aren't allowed to criticize someone because they're just fans and he doesn't owe the fans anything and whatever else it is that they will say. And to that I say, bullshit. The fans of mixed martial arts and the UFC are quite literally the reason these guys are able to make the kind of money they do and live the lifestyles that they want. And yes, even the quote unquote haters. Okay, so we're going to start with all of the infractions in terms of his lengthy record of being a PED user, because that is completely and totally relevant to the sport itself. A criticism a lot of his fans like to give when people bring up the legal troubles. After that, we will move to those very legal troubles. And lastly, we will get to Jon Jones' record of being a fucking duck. Okay, so that the legal issues are sandwiched by violations that are directly related to the sport. So without further ado, let's get into it. Okay, so Jon Jones has an extremely lengthy rap sheet in terms of positive drug tests during his time at the UFC. So much so that eventually USADA had to just change their own rules upon his return when he was facing off against Cyril Gane. The very first time Jon tested positive for anything was actually, in my view, not really that big of a deal. On January 6, 2015, Jon Jones tested positive for cocaine. Okay, something that I personally don't really care all that much about. Also, the positive test came from an out of competition drug test, something that Dana White explained in a press conference due to how many people were outraged at the very small punishment.
Jon Jones was tested out of competition on December 4th. When he was tested, he tested positive for cocaine. So the difference between out of competition testing for PEDs. So I saw a lot of people talking about Jon Jones tested positive for cocaine, yet you see other fighters getting in big trouble for testing positive for marijuana. That is the difference between out of competition and in competition. Jon Jones tested positive for cocaine out of competition.
Citing reasons like Nick Diaz getting such a lengthy suspension for marijuana, yet Jon Jones just gets a slap on the wrist for a positive cocaine test. Jones checked himself into a rehab for one night and it was just a done deal, all good. His first positive drug test would be the least consequential in terms of punishment and the effect it would have on his legacy. Now jump ahead to April of 2016. Jon Jones returns to fight Ovince St. Preux for the interim light heavyweight championship of the world. Okay, a few months later on July 6th, he would be stripped of his title ahead of the unification bout against Daniel Cormier at UFC 200 after another failed drug test.
Man, come on. Come on.
I know, bro. Fuck, I'm so sorry.
Come on.
This time, not for recreational drugs. Jon Jones tested positive for clomiphene and letrozole. Now, Jon Jones claims that this is due to a tainted substance, okay? An erectile dysfunction medication that Jones claims he took. Because of this, he received a very lenient suspension of just 1 year. Now, me personally, I don't believe the dick pill story, okay? It doesn't really check out. The only thing that makes it somewhat believable is the fact that Jon Jones did have, leading up to the Daniel Cormier fight, the testosterone of a female, okay? Derek from More Plates, More Dates has done a deep dive into the entire Jon Jones case, and this is what he had to say about the clomiphene and letrozole test.
You go back to his first positive test results, I believe he tested positive for clomiphene and letrozole way back in like 2016 or something. So if you look at those two drugs, one of them is an aromatase inhibitor that you would use to prevent gyno formation usually. And then Clomid is like a fertility drug you would use to restore testosterone production, or in women, you use it to aid in fertility. So using those two drugs back then, to me, seemed like something you would be doing to either, you know, prevent the gyno from what you were using at a time when it was less scrutinous, perhaps. And then the Clomid, you know, to recover, or something was tainted is what his claim was. But we already have, you know, history of him doing this or getting popped for something pretty stupid to get popped for way back in, you know, 2015, 2016.
Now, one of those drugs will become even more relevant in just a little bit, but for now, let's just move on to the next positive test, okay? On July 29th, 2017, Jon Jones would return from suspension once more and fight Daniel Cormier at UFC 214 for the light heavyweight championship of the world. Jones would, in the third round, land a head kick on DC, resulting in a finish. At least that's how it was listed at the time. But Jon Jones would, of course, test positive once again, this time for Turinabol, and would be stripped again from the title. This, at this point in time, this is the second time he'd been stripped of the undisputed belt and once stripped of an interim title. Jones was suspended this time for 15 months, which to me is kind of fucking crazy, okay? Considering this is now his second violation for PEDs and his third drug violation in total. But I guess when you find some dick pills that have the same metabolites you tested positive for and make it seem like it was an accident, you get some leniency, although there was no real excuse for this one, at least not one that was proven by Jon Jones. Now, jump ahead to his return fight in December of 2018, on December 23rd, just days before UFC 232. The UFC had to move the entire event from Las Vegas, Nevada to Inglewood, California. By the way, a major fucking inconvenience for literally every single fighter on the card. Those cutting weight now have to jump on a plane, which can force your body to retain water. Fighters who make nowhere near what Jon Jones makes have to relocate themselves and their teams to a different state, all because of yet another failed drug test. This is the whole pulsing picogram saga, okay? Another failed test for Turinabol. Jeff Nowitzki and Dana White went on a massive propaganda tour to push this bullshit narrative. But I want you all to know, even if it was, this is now his third violation for performance-enhancing drugs, okay? So when Jones fans bring up the picograms bullshit, just know they haven't a fucking clue what they're talking about, and he tested positive for PEDs twice before that. This is why, personally, I do not have Jon Jones as my GOAT, okay? But either way, the picogram narrative, the quote-unquote pulsing effect, is also, in my opinion, bullshit.
After that, he tests positive for Turinabol, and then thereafter, the pulsing. But the thing that's interesting about that is when Nowitzki talks about this pulsing M3 metabolite, he refers to, well, it's not him, he's just reiterating the research, and it's ultimately they use this reference point of Clomid pulsing as a kind of a proxy to exemplify, look, here's a drug that stores itself in fat tissue and pulses over time. So they use Clomid as an example of because they can't just give a human a shit ton of Turinabol and like try and figure out if this is going to work or not. So they give them this fertility drug, or they've looked in the data and parsed out this information about Clomid pulsing, and they use that as a reference point for like, look, there's a drug that can pulse over time. But the interesting thing is Jon Jones literally popped for Clomid before, but he's never had that pulse. So he has this Turinabol that keeps pulsing, but the Clomid they use as the reference point of a drug that can pulse never pulsed for him.
So basically there is zero evidence that Turinabol can have this pulsing effect, okay? But another drug Jon took was previously shown in studies to do that very thing. So USADA, the UFC, Nowitzki, and everyone else who repeats that same bullshit just made a massive leap in logic that does not hold water, okay? Just a quick aside, Joe Rogan still repeats the picogram bullshit to this day in an attempt to exonerate Jon Jones, either intentionally or just conveniently forgetting the other two failed tests. And the fact that he had it explained to him in detail on his podcast is fucking insane, okay? But I digress. Or Sean Strickland would say, I regress. Now, if you think this was the last time because Jon was never suspended again for PEDs, you would unfortunately be mistaken, okay? The reason he was never suspended again is because they continued to run with the pulsing narrative essentially for the rest of his career. In his very next fight against Anthony Smith, the UFC called Anthony basically every single day to let him know that Jon Jones was still testing positive all fight week long.
Get into his drug test bullshit. I never even told anyone. Jon failed every drug test the entire week leading up to our fight. Every single drug test. I never brought it up one time in any interview, in any media thing, nothing. The commission called me every day to let me know that he was still failing his drug test.
And I think it's safe to assume it did not stop for Thiago Santos, Dominic Reyes, only that they stopped reporting it. After the Dominic Reyes fight, Jon Jones took a 3-year hiatus, something that we will eventually come back to, okay? But upon his return against Cyril Gane in 2023, USADA announced that they had changed their rules, or rather, Nowitzki announced that USADA did, who, by the way, at this point in time, does not work for USADA. He works for the UFC. He is a UFC employee. He is a straight up fucking propagandist, okay? Regardless, it is announced that USADA changed its rules so that the amount Jon had tested for from the Gustafsson fight and beyond would not be illegal, and that it kind of actually exonerates him, okay, from previous positive tests. This to me is absolutely fucking pathetic for a number of reasons. Number one, basically all this means is that he is allowed to have drugs in his system as long as he's cleared enough out by the time they test him. Also, even if the rules change now, it wasn't back then, and we don't get to retroactively exonerate him of infractions that were infractions just because they wouldn't be now. The fact that they had to change the rules for the sport's so-called GOAT, to me, is just absolutely fucking pathetic, okay? And I know a lot of people will say things like, well, they're all on it. Do you know what I mean? Yet, the only person to have this amount of trouble regarding this subject is Jon Jones. If they're all on it, why the fuck don't we see this more often? Okay, but even without the pulsing picogram bullshit, we still have 2 other positive PED tests, both resulting in suspension. Essentially, ever since USADA showed up in 2015, Jon Jones had performance-enhancing drugs in his system every single time he competed. All of these violations, to me, are enough to exclude him from the GOAT conversation, and I think this is plenty of evidence to back the claim that he is the worst representation of a champion in the sport. Demetrius Mighty Mouse Johnson never had any fucking issues like this, okay? But now let's move on to some outside the cage stuff. All right, so Jon Jones' list of legal violations is even longer than his failed test record, which is honestly kind of impressive at this point, okay? And don't worry, we will get to the most recent issue, but I do want to go in chronological order, which means we'll have to go all the way back to May 19th of 2012, where Jon Jones wrapped his Bentley around a utility pole in New York. Jon Jones would later plead guilty to a DUI, something we will find out later is clearly his MO, okay? This is basically Jon Jones' signature move, like the spinning elbow or the oblique kick or whatever. Outside the octagon, it's drinking and driving. And I'll give my opinion on that in just a little bit, but let's just keep going. On April 27th of 2015, we get maybe the worst of the violations in terms of driving. Okay, Jon would commit a hit and run on a pregnant lady who was injured at the scene with a broken arm. Jon fled the scene after causing a 3-car collision and injuring people. This, in my opinion, is the perfect encapsulation of Jon Jones. An absolute selfish, narcissistic piece of shit who cares only about himself, despite acting as though he's a good Christian boy, okay? The response from many on this issue was something I actually found disgusting. Jon Jones has demons, man. He's clearly going through something. Shit like this, okay? Maybe he's just a piece of shit, but I digress. On Joe Rogan's podcast, we got a glimpse into how much Jon Jones cared about injuring innocent people while behind the wheel.
You've been on a crazy ride, not just through July, but for the last couple of years. You've been involved in a lot of crazy shit, you know?
Mm-hmm.
What are you disappointed in yourself with a lot of this stuff?
Yeah, I am. I totally am. Yeah.
What does it feel like? But I was very disappointed with you with that car accident thing.
Yeah.
When you ran away from that car accident.
Yeah.
That to me was like, God damn, John's in a bad place.
Yeah, it was. I was in a bad place. It was a messed up situation, man. I was in a point in my life then when I was winning all these fights. I was the it boy in the UFC, sponsored by Nike and Gatorade, and greatest of all time, finishing legends after legend after legend. Just really in this position where I felt so untouchable, and I just felt like everything was meant to go my way in that time of my life. I think I just took everything that I had for granted, because everything for the majority of my career has gone my way. And that morning I got in a car accident, man, it was a huge reality check. And
did you look at the other person in the other car?
No, I had no clue that it was a woman. I had no clue that it was a pregnant woman.
How much time are we talking about? Like from the time
from the time that I.
By the way, he did plead guilty to this offense also. On March 29th, 2016, Jon Jones would violate his probation for the aforementioned hit and run by drag racing. Jump ahead to April 2019, we have a waitress from a strip club, I know, okay, relax, come forward and claim that Jon Jones denied a private dance. Geez, I wonder why. Do you know what I mean? So curious why Jon Jones would deny a private dance either way, but then began to quote-unquote roughhouse with this waitress and would eventually go on to grope her. Now, Jon Jones would plead no contest and took a reduced charge on this issue as well. We continue on. On March 26, 2020, Jon Jones was arrested in New Mexico for an aggravated DWI and negligent use of a firearm, among other charges. This is the infamous body cam footage where Jones claims he was out looking for homos.
Where were you driving to?
I just went for a drive. I was getting stir crazy. Met the homeless guys just a second ago and just thought I'd talk to them. Give them some love.
You don't know where that gunshot came from, though?
No, sir.
Okay.
I mean hobos. That's my bad. Giving liquor to homeless guys, okay? And then fired his gun in the air, which he was doing a fucking desk pop at the wheel of the car. That's insane. But either way, the gun was later found under his seat. This.
You know the casings in our...
Jeez. Let's get Sarge over here.
This is also the body cam footage where Jon Jones claims he can't recite the alphabet because his daughter is dyslexic, but also CTE or something like that.
Yes, sir. Okay, I'm going to start the test now.
From 47?
Correct.
47, 46, 45, 43, 44, 43. My daughter's dyslexic.
Jones would plead guilty to the DWI, which is kind of funny considering he wasn't even driving at the time. This is like the only time he didn't just get pulled over for driving. September 23rd, 2021, Jon Jones was brought to Vegas to have his fight with Alexander Gustafsson inducted into the Hall of Fame. Was later arrested for misdemeanor battery violence and injuring or tampering with a police vehicle. This was the incident involving Jon Jones' fiance for the last 10 years, okay? Either way, where one of his daughters pleaded with the guy at the front desk of the hotel to call the cops. When Jon Jones was arrested, he went absolutely fucking insane, okay? Jumping and screaming while in handcuffs, would go from crying to anger, and then he just kept cycling through those, threatening police officers, something else he's quite familiar with apparently, and would eventually headbutt the cop car after asking the long, unanswered still to this day, question, "Black man can't drink?"
Oh my goodness. Yeah. Immediately, my whole night. You f***ing nerd. I hate you. I hate you. I hate you. I hate you. You f***ing nerd. I hate you so much. My Hall of Fame night. Say your name publicly. Say it. Garrett what? John. Officer Nerd. Calm down, bro. Heard me in my Hall of Fame night just because I'm big and black. And what did I do? All these officers. I came from my Hall of Fame ceremony, and I'm black, and I have my friends, and I did nothing to you. Where was that at? Oh, hang me, hurt me, and kill me. What did I do? Thank you. My Hall. A black man can't drink. And getting elected into the Hall of Fame, and now this is what I got. Do you? Relax. Relax. Y'all. The other police officers, I hate you. I hate you.
So I just want to throw it in there. He's also a bit of a race baiter, okay? And when he finds himself in trouble, not all the time, but sometimes he does try to play the race card. And a lot of people thought the way he was acting was due to being manic or bipolar, brain damage, or whatever the fuck. Personally, I think Jon has gotten away with shit his entire fucking life, and because of it, has a very childish view of the world. I think he was trying whatever methods to get away with what he had done. So when crying didn't work, he'd go to anger. When that didn't work, he'd go to bringing up race, like a toddler throwing a tantrum, okay? But either way, his response to this, in my opinion, was also disgusting. Tweeting shit like, we're gonna turn lemons into lemonade. Okay, after he was just arrested for beating the mother of his children, to the point where people were concerned for her safety, including his own children. Then we jump ahead to April 7th, 2024. The Albuquerque police issue a summons for Jones over threatening a drug testing agent. He would be placed on probation as long as he didn't misbehave for something like 90 days or whatever it was. They would drop the charges. Now, I want to put a bit of a pin in that, okay? The level of punishment he receives we'll talk about after going over this most recent issue. Now, February 21st, 2025, police investigating a vehicle crash, vehicle incident, whatever, find a woman in the passenger seat of the car, intoxicated, with no pants on. The woman claims Jon Jones was with her and the one driving. Now, I do believe there is merit to this, considering after the time of the crash, all the way into the morning. Jon Jones had called her phone 13 times. Also, we know he's got a thing for drinking and driving, okay? But either way, recently the Albuquerque police released parts of the body cam footage, and in my opinion, it was to counter the statements made by Jon Jones's lawyer about the police department targeting Jon Jones, okay? Which, by the way, I find absolutely fucking pathetic, and it's just another attempt to victimize a horrible, wretched, putrid human being in Jon Jones. The police department kept this quiet for fucking months, okay? It wasn't until a journalist went digging into Jon Jones after it was announced that he was retired. So this journalist heard the news of Jon Jones retiring, thought, let me just run his name in the database, because he thought the timing seemed weird, and voila, he fucking found it, okay? So to act as though the police and the court system have not done Jon Jones favors over and over and over again is just truly pathetic. But either way, on the body cam footage, it shows Jon Jones threatening the police officer speaking with him multiple times, bringing up how his guy slits throats and kills people for less or whatever the fuck.
Please talk to him. Please talk to him. This is a friend that's a friend of mine.
Hello, who am I speaking to? Me as PSA Lopez. And who am I speaking to?
What's your name?
PSA Lopez. With the Albuquerque Police Department.
How many guys you guys I'll do with you?
Don't worry about them, man. Were you the one driving the vehicle?
My brothers attacked the dreams and the sisters and the cell phones.
He was the one driving the vehicle.
They slip through. They're the most evil people you ever meet.
That's Jon Jones.
Jon Jones?
Mm-hmm. He was the one driving the vehicle.
But they don't waste their cases with just killing you on petty crimes. But they definitely listen to conversations like this, and some of them are bored enough to kill you. To kill you. Because they listen. And they teach me to be a man when I'm a dog.
So, listen to me, man. He's making threats, and if he's making threats, I gotta call an officer out here.
Call him.
Now, I want to just make a few points on all of this, okay? Firstly, I want to point out Jon Jones never actually tries to fight any of these legal allegations in court. He either pleads guilty or no contest, which I find fucking insane because, number one, he has the money to fight this shit. Do you know what I mean? More so than anybody pressing charges. Jon Jones is extremely wealthy. And number two, he's a public figure, and if he's able to clear his name, it would benefit him as a public figure, right? It would benefit his public image, but he doesn't because he's fucking guilty every single time. Now, something else I want to point out is just how putrid Jon Jones truly is, okay? Like Daniel Cormier said, he is rotten to his core. Jon Jones has absolutely zero regard for human life, which is why after multiple times crashing his vehicle while under the influence, he continues to do so. It's not even like well, once he hurts someone or hurts himself, he'll stop doing it, because he fucking has already, okay? He injured the pregnant lady and has been caught drinking and driving multiple times after that. I genuinely don't think if he killed someone, God forbid, that he would stop. I can only hope that when inevitably Jon Jones does kill someone from a DUI, that it's not the other person involved. Okay, I mentioned earlier that Jon Jones seems to get away with shit and that the courts have done him favors over and over again, which I do believe is true. Someone with a rap sheet this long and has never received a jail sentence is fucking insane. And I believe any regular citizen would have been stripped of their driving license, number one, and their freedoms long ago, which is why I find it so rich the route his lawyer is trying to take, talking about the police targeting him. He has been given slap on the wrist after slap on the wrist after slap on the wrist, and still the police covered up this most recent issue for nearly 5 fucking months, okay? When him threatening an officer, threatening to have an officer killed, okay, is literally on fucking camera. They still did not release anything about this issue for almost 5 months. But either way, let's move past the legal stuff before I get carried away, okay? Knowing multiple people close to me whom have died due to the combination of alcohol and vehicles, this does get my blood boiling a bit, okay? So we will move on to the last segment of this video, which is going to be the whole ducking situation. And in my opinion, it was not just Tom Aspinall. Okay, now after all of that, we're going to just pile on the fact that Jon Jones did not, on multiple occasions, give the fans who quite literally pay his fucking bills the fights that they wanted and were clamoring for. The first couple, I even gave a pass at the time, made excuses for it, and I don't even like Jon Jones. But considering the way he just left the sport, it does seem to be a bit of a pattern, okay? August 23rd, 2012 is the first instance of what could be perceived as ducking. Although not really, because he did go on to fight him. But regardless, Jon Jones refused to fight Chael Sonnen, which resulted in, I believe, the only time in history an entire event was just canceled. Dan Henderson pulled out of his scheduled fight with Jones, and Chael Sonnen was willing to jump in. Now, Dana will always blame Greg Jackson for this taking place, but ultimately, Jon Jones is an adult, okay? And
I'm very confused by his whole business plan. I don't give a what Greg Jackson thinks. Guy's a weirdo, man. Are you kidding me? Turning down a I mean, if he takes the fight with Chael Sonnen, it would be the biggest mistake of his entire career because he's not ready for that guy. Greg Jackson should never be interviewed by anybody ever again except for a psychiatrist.
Could have saved the event if he wanted to, like Islam Makhachev has done multiple times, but he doesn't want to, right? It's funny, I see a lot of people claiming that the fans are ungrateful for being upset that Jon Jones did not fight Tom. In my opinion, Jon is ungrateful of the fans, refusing to save events or giving the fans the fights they actually want to fucking see, okay? Instead of making us watch old man Stipe get the shit beat out of him. Now, either way, after Jon Jones was gifted a decision against Dominic Reyes, a fight that he absolutely fucking lost, okay? The talk of the town was for Jon Jones to move up and fight Francis Ngannou, his long-awaited heavyweight run, something that both Jones and fans had talked about and wanted for quite some time. But he refused to do so, priced himself out, claimed that he wanted Deontay Wilder money. Even Dana White at the time acknowledged it and said something to the effect of, did you see that fight? Yeah, if I was Jon Jones, I'd be moving down to middleweight, not going up, or something like that.
Yeah. And I got to ask you what appeals next, right? Because Stipe, we talked about it, greatest of all time. We said if he loses, he'd probably deserve a rematch. But, man, the idea of a Jon Jones fight seems awfully exciting right now. And Jon came out, tweeted, said, show me the money. What appeals to you most? Because it seems like that would be an amazing super fight.
If I'm Jon Jones and I'm home watching this fight, I start moving to 85.
You think that's a fight that you'd like to put together next? I mean, I know we don't matchmake, but that sure does seem exciting.
Listen, I could sit here all day and tell you, what show me the money mean? I tell you guys this all the time. If you can say you want to fight somebody, but do you really want to?
Jon Jones would then leave the sport for about 3 years to allegedly bulk up to heavyweight. 3 years later, he returns with a belly and weighs about 230 pounds. So he took 3 years to gain like 10 pounds of belly. Okay, I don't know, either way. And of course, then would go out refusing to fight Tom Aspinall, the only fucking fight at heavyweight. The man holding the interim title, the man who defended his interim title. Instead, he defended the belt against, like I said, old man Stipe, who, by the way, had not fought in 3 years, had not won in 4 years, and was coming off of a devastating knockout to Francis Ngannou in his last fight. It was a pathetic fight, a pathetic title defense, and I don't even acknowledge it as such. And there are also people who believe that Jon Jones ducked Cain Velasquez as well. back in the day. Okay, a lot of people wanted to see that fight. Jon was dominant at light heavyweight at the time, kind of struggling to find contenders, but he refused to do that at the time as well. So at this point, I do feel like there is a pattern of Jon Jones staying away from fights that worry him. We heard at the end Jon Jones say a lot of times, like, these people just want to see me challenged, right? As if that's a fucking insult to the fans. That's quite literally what being a champion of a sport is. Every other champion has to take on the next guy, the next guy, the next guy, even if the fans think they're going to lose. And this is something else that we heard Jon say. Well, after Tom, it's going to be the next guy. And yeah, that's what a champion is, my guy. So if you're too old to fill that obligation, then fucking dip. Do you know what I mean? So, with all of that being said, okay, it is, in my opinion, that Jon Jones was the worst representation of a champion the sport has ever fucking seen. Call me a hater all you'd like, but for me, his legacy isn't even just tainted or stained. It's fucking caked in mud, okay? All of the positive steroid tests, all of the legal issues, and not giving the fans the fights they wanted multiple times over. I've laid it all out here. It's forever documented, and I'll be honest, I'm glad he's gone. Okay, so that's it. Like and subscribe. I'd greatly appreciate it. I'll see you at the next one. Bye-bye.